So uh, actually, I need really the interaction from you because I'm not sure if you're getting the things right. So I will create. I will start the project, and you need to, you need to guide me what you have to do, what we have to do. So let's write down the things here. So first thing, I will create a component. So do you know how to create a component?
I have to watch the videos. I haven't been
Okay.
doing them as much as I would like to, so I need to go through the videos more.
Okay. So this is the way we create the component. We import the React, we start the class, and then we create a render function, and we return it the HTML part. So this is how we create the component. Now, if I want to create a variable state and props, how will I do that? Do you remember that, or you still don't remember that?
I don't remember. I definitely have to go through the videos. Like I'm
Okay.
watching, but I've been kind of distracted. So
Right. Right. Okay. So let me go through once again very fast. Let's
thank
see.
you.
Yeah. So let's say this is my component. So I will start from the beginning. I will delete all and I'll start from the beginning. Let's go to the project 1. Okay, let's go to project 2. I'm checking where I can start explaining. Okay, so this is the good place. Second. Okay, so I created a component app here and it returns some div tag. This is the way to create a component. Let's say if I want to create another component, I can create in another file or I can create here also. Let's say I create a component here in this file. So I'll say class main. I'm creating a component extends component. So are you okay with React or I should continue with the basic JavaScript? Just asking how you like it.
I like React. I haven't had time to do it.
Time
Like
to do
I
that.
like the fact that it's like components and they go all into a file and you can change one and it changes, all of them.
Yeah.
I definitely
Okay.
like it, and that it's small chunks, so you kind of focus on one chunk and then you can move
Right.
to another chunk. I definitely
Right.
like it. I just haven't had time to practice.
Time to do that. Okay.
Yeah.
So I have one component app kind of thing, and I have another component main here in this file, and I can call this main component here in this my app component. So to create a component, I should have a render function inside here, this main, and inside the render function, I will return some HTML. And this HTML is in the JSX format. It is directly HTML without any quotation. Directly we insert the HTML inside the return value. And this is the something called a JSX code. And I am putting here main. And since I want to call the main here in the app, I will say main and I'll close the tag. Remember the component always start with the M capital. All the letters should be capital of the component and the HTML tag should have the small letter in the beginning. So this way we can differentiate what is the component and which is the HTML tag. So let's run this one and see how it goes. So I'm going little basics again because I want to make something clear. Taking time to load. Let's start again. Okay. So what we will do, we will skip the yesterday's part that I will take after a couple of days. Let's do some basic stuff and then we will move to that part again. So if I go to the developer tools, Kate, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay. So, yeah, we can hear you. So my question to you, are you fine in React or you want to go to basics to JavaScript and CSS, which we were doing? Or you're comfortable with the React, you want to learn React? Because I started React, I was not sure if you people like it or you don't like it.
Yeah, I'm pretty comfortable with that.
Okay. So I created one component. Actually, I need interaction. If you don't talk in between, I feel that you are not understanding. So today I will be asking a lot of questions and I want the answers from you. So this is the component I created it, and this is another component I created. This second component I can create in another file, but I created in this file only. Now I call this component main component inside the app component, and since I call the main component inside app component, so you are able to see the main text which I mentioned it here. So this way I can call another component in another component. Now if I want to create the variables, I can create one function. That function is called constructor. Constructor function is automatically called whenever the component is called. So whenever the app is created, at that time constructor is automatically called. After constructor is called, render method is automatically called. We don't have to specifically write a code to call the constructor or render. It is done automatically by the React. In the constructor, I have to pass a parameter called as props, and I have to mention one statement that is called a super props. And super props means it will call the parent component, that is this component, and it will pass props. This is the default statement which we have to write, even if you use it or not. It is just a default statement. We have to pass it. Now inside the constructor, I will create a variable that will be called as a state variable, and it will be object. And the first object I will put as name. Name will be, let's say, many, and I will put the age. So I can use this name and age in this component, that is the app component, by saying let's put HR, and here I will say name is, I will write down this dot state dot name. So I can mention the name which I put it here, and I will say, and age is this dot state dot age. So here it will reflect. So there is some problem. Okay, I deleted the main. That's the reason. Let's get it back. By mistake, deleted the main one. Now, if I refresh, so it's saying name is many, age is 43. So name is coming from here, and age is coming from here. Now, if I want to display name and state in the main component, what will I do? If I want to display the name and age in the main component, what I have to do?
Props.
So here I have to pass the name and age to the main component. So I'll say name equal to this dot state dot name, and age is equal to this dot state dot age. And in the main component, I can call same name and age, but instead of state, it will be prop. If I'm passing some variable to another component, it will become props. But if I'm creating here as a state, I can use that variable in the state format. Just remember for today this one, and it will refresh. This is coming from the main, and this is coming from the app. So here I can say h1 main, and same thing here I can say app. So you can see which one is coming from app, which one is coming from the main. So this is coming from the main, and this is coming from the app. Now there is a life cycle. In React, we have some life cycle. That life cycle will tell which function is called first and which function is called second. And there are some default functions which will be called by React application. And today we will see the life cycle. So first life cycle, first I will put the console.log here. Console.log, and I will say I am in constructor. So we are in the constructor function. Then I will write console.log here, and here I will say I am in render function. Let's see which one is called first and which one. So first constructor is called, then render function is called. So we know whenever the app loaded, constructor is called first and then render function is called. Now there are other lifecycle methods which we will see now, and we will see when each one is called. So first lifecycle method is called as component will mount. What is the name of the lifecycle? This is a component will mount. What it does the following. It says it is immediately called before initial rendering. Before we call the render, this function is called. This component will mount. Can you guess what is the meaning of this? Component will mount means what?
Virtual DOM generated the virtual DOM.
Yeah, so something this means this is the component part. This is the main part that is called the render part. I am saying component will mount. That means if this will mount or not. So it's saying this part will mount. That means this part will become a real HTML, yes or no. That it means like that. So I will say I am in the component will mount. So if component will mount, component will mount will come before the render, because this is the function which really is saying that will the component mount, yes or no. If it will mount, then we will come to no. And here we can also see what is the value of props coming. So to see the value of props, I will say this dot prop. And now I will see which one is coming first, render function or component. So first is constructor called. Then I am in the component will mount. This is empty. And then it is in the render function. So this is the life cycle that first constructor is called, then component will mount is called, then render function is called. So we in each lifecycle method, we do some kind of activities in the real application. And we will see something when we will make some application, what to be done in each lifecycle method. Generally, all are not used practically, but some are used in the practical day-to-day life of the React application. Next is called the component did mount. Did mount means this should be mounted. This should be mounted, and then this component did mount will be called. Will mount means will this component be allowed to mount? Yes or no? Yes. So this will mount it. And then after this will mount it, it will go to component did mount. Did mount means this will mount it, and then we are calling component did mount. So it is called, I'm putting some comments, immediately after initial rendering. That means after render, this is called. Let's see, console.log. I am in component did mount. I will also pass this props to see what is coming in the props. Now if I refresh, you will see constructor is called, then component will mount is called, then render function is called, then component did mount is called. So did mount comes after the render function, and with the name you can see did mount, that means render function is called or not. After render function is called, we call the component did mount. That means yes, render function is called. So it's saying after did mount is after render function, we call the component did mount. So if I want to put any Ajax related stuff, so either I will put it in this part or I will put it in this part. Just guess, don't think too much.
Put what? Ajax?
Yeah,
Did mount.
did mount. Have you seen the document.onReady in the jQuery function as a jQuery function? Have you seen that function?
No.
Document.onReady? No. So document.ready is something when the page loads and then we put it in the document.onReady, and that is where we put all the Ajax related stuff. So this component did mount is similar to that document on ready. That means everything is ready. Now you call the Ajax and other things. Okay, next we will see. Next one is called as component will update. And it is two parameter, and one parameter is called next prop and next state. So these are the two parameters it is calling. And this one is called before rendering. After receiving new prop or state. So let's say if I am updating the state value, when I update the state value, then as soon as I update the state value, it will go to this function and it will say component will update. That means this component will update or no. After we change the state, we will say whether this component will update or no. If it says yes, then this component will update. That means whole part will be re-render again. And if it is returning false, if we say return false, then this render will not called again and variables will not be updated. So to see that, let's do that. Console.log. I am in component will update. I will see what is the next prop is, and I will also see what are the next state is. So to really see it, we will update the state and then see it. Right now, if I refresh it, you will not see that function because nothing is updated. When state or props are updated, or when props come to the component or state is updated, then this function is called. Whether render should be updated again, that means the variable should change in the render function, because whenever I create a state name, it is coming here. And when I change the state name, at that time the whole render function is called again and all the variable names are updated. But if I say component will update, if I pass return false, then all the render function will not be called and all variables will not be updated with the new value. to see this, I will create one input box and try to change the name in the state. Let's say I will create input type equal to text, value equal to state.name, and on change, I will not create another function. I will write a function here only. I will write a function here, and how to write this function I will explain you later. Just you remember that function is called here. So I'm not really calling the new function and updating the state. I showed you how to update the state, but I am updating state directly here. And this is another way to update the state, but I haven't taught you that method. I will show you after some time this method, how to update directly here in the input box without creating a function. Okay, so there is some problem in the statement. Let's check that. Curly bracket is okay, and okay, I did not close this box. Okay, so now my name is Many. So if I change it, Many's. Once I change it, you will see I am in the component will update. That means this function is called. That means component will update or not. And props is nothing because I did not pass the props. I changed the state. So new state you are able to see new Many's. Since if I don't say return false, it is automatically returning true. Since it is returning true, render function is called. I will ask again now. This is my page. I call the constructor first, then I call component will mount, then render function is called, and then component did mount is called. When I change the state, which function will be called? When I change the state, which function out of these three will be called?
Update.
Will update. Okay, component will update. These two will be called on the page load. When I load the page, these two are called. But now when I change the state, which one is called? This one is called. And if I don't pass any return, it's automatically returning true. It's saying return true. It's default, it is returning true. What is the meaning of returning true?
Rendering.
Rendering. It should render again. Whenever I change the state, it should render again. And all the variables will be updated. Let's try again. If I say Many's. So since it is returning true, whenever I change Many's, this function is called component will update. And this function will be called, and since I don't pass anything, it will be return true. But here I pass return true. Return true, that means render should be called again. Component will update means render should be called again, and render is called again, and everywhere you will see the new name, Many's, 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 because render function is called again. Now what if I pass true, false? If I pass false, that means component will not update the render part, and all the variables will not be updated in the render part. Because I'm returning false, that means I'm saying don't update the render, don't update the component. Component will update will be false. That means don't update the component, and render function will not be called, and all the old variables will be there. Let's refresh the page. Now I will change it. Okay, it's calling the render function. Well, not call the render function. Okay. Okay, this is not the function which does the false part. There is another function, sorry. This one only says component will update, and this will only give me the next props and next state, and I can manipulate this next props and next state. So this one really will not call the render part. There is another function which does the part of the render, and that function is called the should component update. Component will update that means it will tell us that component is updating. Render function is updating, and this is called. There is another function called the should component update, and here if I return false, then render function will not be called. Let's do that. I will put new pops and I will say new state. And here I will just return false. If I say false, this is the meaning should component update. That means whether component has to be updated or not. So here we will see. Here we see it will not call because I am returning false. Component will update will automatically call before rendering. So if this is returning false, then render function will not be called. Let's check that one now. I say S. Since I say S, it's saying I am in should component update, and since I'm returning false, so neither this component will update is called, neither render function is called, because this component will update is also dependent on this one. If should component update will return true, and where as soon as it will return true, the component will update will be called and render function will be called. So let's do it again. So since I return false, after should component update, component will update is called and render function is called. So component will update will call only if I return true in the should component update. And if I say should component update is false, then component will update will not be called. Did you got the difference?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I will give you the notes for this. There are more lifecycle methods which we will do tomorrow. This I give you the notes here, so which we'll do tomorrow.